In 2007, I worked as a repo driver in rural Missouri. If you don't know what that is, I basically repossessed vehicles from people who stopped making payments. It wasn't exactly legal the way my boss ran things, but it paid cash and I didn't ask questions. Back then, I was 26 and completely numb to guilt. I had already been arrested twice for assault, once for burglary, and I spent most weekends either drunk or high. I didn't care about people. In my mind, everybody was selfish anyway, so why pretend? The company I worked for specialized in rural recoveries because most legitimate tow companies avoided isolated properties late at night. My boss loved that. Less witnesses. One October night, around 1:30 a.m., I got sent to recover a black Ford F-150 from a property deep in Bryer County. The address immediately annoyed me because it was far beyond civilization. No gas stations, no stores, just endless trees and empty roads. The deeper I drove into the woods, the more my GPS started glitching. Eventually, it lost signal entirely. The property finally appeared at the end of a dirt road. There was only one house. No neighbors. No lights except a dim yellow porch bulb. An old rusted swing creaked slowly on the porch even though there wasn't any wind. I remember staring at it thinking, this place looks like a murder scene already. The truck I needed was parked beside a detached garage. Easy job. Normally during repossessions, speed matters. You hook the vehicle fast and leave before the owner notices. But as I stepped out of my tow truck, I noticed something strange. The front door of the house was already open. Not wide open, just cracked slightly, like someone was standing behind it watching me. I froze for a second. Then I laughed at myself. I dealt with angry owners before. Farmers with guns. Drunks with baseball bats. This wasn't new. I walked toward the Ford quietly. The woods around the house were dead silent. No insects. No fracks. Nothing. That silence bothered me more than the house. I hooked the truck quickly and climbed back into my tow vehicle. The moment I started the engine, the porch light turned off. My stomach dropped. The entire property became pitch black except for my headlights. Then someone knocked on my driver's side window. Hard. I nearly screamed. An elderly woman stood beside my truck. I swear she wasn't there 2 seconds earlier. She wore a long gray nightgown and had thin white hair hanging over one side of her face. I cracked the window slightly. "Can I help you?" She smiled. Not kindly. It looked forced. "You're taking my son's truck." Her voice sounded wet somehow, like she had water in her throat. I explained the repossession order and told her she needed to call the bank. She just stared at me. Then she quietly asked, "Did they send you a loan?" That question hit me weird. I asked what she meant. Instead of answering, she slowly looked toward the woods behind me. Then she whispered, "You should leave before he sees you." I got irritated immediately. I thought this was some intimidation tactic. I told her I was already leaving. That's when the garage door behind her slammed open. The sound echoed through the woods so loudly I jumped. Inside the garage was darkness. Complete darkness. No lights. No movement. But I heard breathing. Heavy breathing. The old woman's smile disappeared instantly. "You need to go," she whispered again. "Fast." I put the truck into drive immediately, but the tow vehicle suddenly jerked violently, like something grabbed it. I looked in the mirror. A huge man was standing behind the Ford. At first I thought he was pulling on the chain. Then my headlights hit his face. His skin looked pale gray. Not pale like sickness. Gray. His beard was soaked with something dark. And he was barefoot. I slammed the gas pedal. The tow truck lurched forward hard enough to snap the chain. The Ford dropped off. I sped down the dirt road as fast as possible. But when I checked my mirror, the man was running after the truck. Not sprinting normally. His arms barely moved. He just charged forward unnaturally fast through the darkness. I hit nearly 70 miles per hour on that dirt road trying to escape. Eventually, I lost sight of him. About 10 minutes later, I reached the highway and pulled over because my hands were shaking so badly. That's when I realized something horrifying. There were muddy handprints all over the back of my tow truck. Not on the outside, inside the truck bed, like someone climbed onto it while I was driving. I quit that repo company the next morning. 2 weeks later, I searched the property online. The house had burned down in 1998. Nobody officially lived there anymore. And according to an old newspaper article, the owners had died in the fire along with their adult son. The son was described as being over 6 feet tall and nearly 350 pounds. I still remember the attached black and white family photo. It was them, the old woman, the giant man, all standing on the same porch, the swing visible behind them. I used to work overnight security at a storage facility outside Phoenix, Arizona. Worst period of my life. I was addicted to gambling and drowning in debt. By that point, I had already stolen money from family members and lied to basically everyone close to me. The storage facility job was supposed to help me get back on track, but instead I started stealing from abandoned units. Not big stuff, mostly electronics, tools, cash if I found any. The facility had over 400 units and terrible surveillance coverage. I figured nobody would ever know. For almost 8 months, I got away with it. Then Unit 237 happened. I remember the number because I still refused to say it out loud. It started with complaints. Multiple renters reported hearing noises late at night near the back row of units. Scratching, crying, banging. My manager assumed homeless people were sneaking onto the property. So one Friday around 2 a.m., I drove the golf cart out to investigate. The back section of the facility was isolated from the main office by a long chain-link corridor. The lights back there flickered constantly. As I got closer to Unit 237, I noticed its lock was missing. That was strange because according to records, the renter hadn't paid in almost a year. The unit should have been empty. I grabbed my flashlight and slowly rolled the door open. The smell hit instantly. Rotten. Like spoiled meat left in the sun. I gagged immediately. Inside the unit was furniture covered in plastic sheets. Old lamps, boxes, a recliner. First it looked normal. Then my flashlight hit the back wall. Someone had written hundreds of words across it in black marker. Same sentence repeated over and over. Don't let him out. My first thought was drug addicts or squatters. I started backing away. Then I heard movement behind the plastic sheets. Slow shuffling. I called out. No response. The movement stopped. I should have left right there. Instead, I walked deeper into the unit. As I moved the flashlight around, I noticed something hanging from the ceiling. Tiny bells, dozens of them. Fishing line connected them together all across the ceiling. An alarm system. That realization made my stomach twist. Someone was living in there. Then one of the bells jingled behind me. I spun around. Nothing. But I heard breathing. Close. Way too close. I rushed outside immediately and slammed the unit shut. My hands were trembling. I radioed the front office, but nobody answered. That's when the facility lights shut off. All of them. The entire property went black. I stood frozen in total darkness. Then I heard metal doors slamming, one after another. Bang, 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 like someone was sprinting through the rows opening and closing units. I ran for the golf cart, but before I reached it, a voice whispered directly beside me. You opened it. I dropped the flashlight. When it hit the ground, the beam rolled sideways. For 1 second, the light illuminated someone standing between the storage rows. Tall, skinny, completely naked, his head tilted sideways unnaturally far. and it was smiling. I jumped into the golf cart and sped toward the office. As I drove, storage doors slammed all around me. Some were opening, some were closing. The entire place sounded alive. When I finally reached the office, the power suddenly came back on. Everything became quiet again. I locked myself inside until sunrise. The next morning, my manager reviewed the security footage with me. The cameras showed me talking to empty air near Unit 237. No one else appeared. But around 2:14 a.m., every camera on the property glitched simultaneously for exactly 11 seconds. During that glitch, all the storage unit doors somehow opened at once. Every single one. The manager accused me of messing with the system. I quit immediately. A few months later, curiosity got the better of me. I searched the facility online. Turns out years earlier, a serial kidnapper rented Unit 237. Police found human remains inside after neighbors complained about strange smells. The case got national attention for a while before disappearing. What scared me most was the mugshot. The man's smile. It looked exactly like the thing I saw standing between the units. In 2011, I worked front desk at a cheap motel outside Nashville, Tennessee. The place was disgusting. Drug deals, affairs, fights, prostitutes. Every horrible thing you can imagine happened there. And honestly, I fit right in. I used to scam guests constantly. If someone left valuables behind, I'd pocket them. If drunk customers paid cash, I sometimes charged extra and kept the difference. Nobody cared. The motel owner barely even came around. One rainy November night, around midnight, a family checked in. A man, a woman, and a little girl around maybe 8 years old. They paid cash for room 214. Immediately something felt wrong about them. Not dangerous exactly, just off. The father never blinked. Not once. The little girl kept staring at the security cameras mounted around the lobby. The mother looked terrified. Not nervous, terrified. While I handed them their keycard, the little girl suddenly asked me, "Do you hear scratching too?" I awkwardly laughed and said no. The parents didn't react at all. Like they didn't even hear her. They went upstairs quietly. About an hour later, I got a noise complaint from the room below 214. The guest claimed there was loud dragging sounds above him. Furniture scraping, thumping. I went upstairs irritated because dealing with complaints in the middle of the night sucked. As I walked down the hallway, I noticed the lights near room 214 were flickering. Then I heard it. Dragging. Slow, heavy dragging across the floor. I knocked. No answer. But the dragging stopped instantly. I knocked again louder. Still nothing. Then I heard the little girl whisper from inside. "He's under the bed." Every hair on my arms stood up. I asked if everything was okay. The father suddenly opened the door. The room behind him was dark except for TV static glowing blue. He stared at me silently. I explained the complaint. Without breaking eye contact, he said, "My daughter has nightmares." Then he smiled. It wasn't normal. His lips stretched too wide. I apologized and started walking away. Right before the door closed, I heard the little girl whisper, "Please don't leave me." I stopped walking. I almost turned back, but I didn't. I went downstairs and tried ignoring it. Around 3 a.m., the lobby phone rang. Room 214. I answered. Only static. Then faint crying. Then the little girl whispered, "He's coming out now." The line disconnected. I called the room back immediately. No answer. At that point, I was genuinely scared. I grabbed the master key and went upstairs again. The hallway lights were completely off this time. Only the exit signs glowed red. As I approached room 214, I noticed the door was already open slightly. Inside, the TV blasted static loudly. The room looked empty. I slowly stepped inside. The bathroom sink was running. Mud covered the floor, and the beds were gone. Not moved, gone. Only deep scrape marks remained in the carpet. Then I heard scratching beneath me, under the floor. I froze. The scratching got louder, like fingernails digging upward through wood. Then the little girl screamed somewhere inside the walls. I ran for the door instantly, but slammed directly into someone standing there. The father. He hadn't made a sound approaching me. Up close, his face looked wrong. His skin sagged strangely around the mouth, like it didn't fit properly. He whispered, "You shouldn't look under beds." Then something underneath the floor slammed upward so hard the entire room shook. I shoved past him and sprinted downstairs. When police arrived 20 minutes later, room 214 was empty. No family. No lagi. No mood. Nothing. The officers assumed I was drunk or high, but one older cop pulled me aside before leaving. He asked me to describe the little girl. When I did, his expression changed immediately. He told me not to come back to work for a few days. Later, I learned why. Years earlier, a family matching that exact description checked into the motel. The father murdered his wife and daughter in room 214 before killing himself. The little girl's body was found hidden underneath the bed frame. To this day, I still avoid roadside motels whenever possible. And anytime I hear hotel TV static late at night, I immediately leave.